Thoughts on the polarizing reactions to Chris Stuckmann's Shelby Oaks. There's kind of a lot at play here, I would imagine. Right off the bat, it's a situation where there's just a big narrative that almost everyone carries into the movie. Could be on two sides of the narrative. The one where you're like me, and you've been watching him for over 10 years. I know him personally, inspired starting the channel. And of course, that's a bias. And I backed it. That's a ton of bias. Obviously. I was at the world premiere. A ton of bias. And then there's a bunch of people on the other side that just don't like Chris Stuckmann. They don't like that he stopped doing negative reviews. They don't like that he crowdfunded for the movie. They pick on him for little things that he did here and there, stupid things he said. You make videos long enough, you say dumb things. I've been there. So they pick on him for his little moments. And so there's just people that don't like him. Like, very obviously don't like him. And spun up this whole narrative. Their whole made up Chris Stuckmann lore as to why they hate him before they'd seen the movie. They'd made up their mind on the film. So there's not very many people just watching it free of bias, free of very strong perspective on the film. Other thing you have to keep in mind, that this is probably one of the 5 lowest budgeted films this year to get a wide release. So the original production budget was probably slightly less than $1 million. They did reshoots that took it over $1 million, but according to the producers, it still wasn't even $2 million. So anyway you look at it, this is a movie that was made very cheap. You have a bunch of people that normally go see movies that cost at least $10 million. Watch a lot of movies that cost over $100 million. They don't see a lot of movies that are made for $1 million. And you start to evaluate a movie not based on the quality of the film, but you're just used to a certain size, spectacle, pacing, whatever from a movie, and you watch something that's this. If you go to a lot of film festivals, you watch a lot of movies that are this big. They're small. And you see movies that are this big, and they feel cheap and amateurish, and you see movies that are this big, and you go, oh, that was a good one. That was put together well. And there's a side to it of you're watching $1 million film that's a first film from someone that is shot really well. It blends together certain genres in an interesting way to be able to get more out of the budget than they would be able to do otherwise. And then there's some things in it that are derivative, that it doesn't necessarily add a ton to the genre. And so people evaluate like, oh, it doesn't say anything new. It doesn't do anything new. It's derivative in certain ways. And you go, that's a fair criticism. That's fair. True. But that doesn't mean what's there is bad. And also, you were expecting a $1 million first film from someone independently produced to reinvent the horror genre? Like, what are you talking about? Once again, if you don't watch a lot of movies that are actually in this category, you're judging it based off movies that cost 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times as much. You know, one episode of It, Welcome to Derry, cost 10, 15 times more than this whole movie. And we're in an era where TV shows, premium TV shows, very regularly cost 10, 15, 20 times per episode the budget of this whole movie. And you immediately put it in that context, and you have people that their evaluation of it is very skewed, and they're evaluating more the budget than they are actually the movie itself. Is this going to be in my top 10 of the year? Nowhere close to it. Do I think that this is just reinventing the genre? No. But it's a solid $1 million horror film. It's a solid first film made independently. It just is. And like even some of the criticisms that people have made of the one that keeps coming up is there's a character that gets blood on her face early on in the movie and she doesn't wash it off several hours later. It's an odd choice. I understand watching it and being like, that was weird. But that keeps coming up as like, obviously this movie's bad. But it's not a major plot point. It's just something violent happens in front of her, and she's like in shock, and she sits down and never washes her face. And hours go by, and so it just seems weird. But it doesn't have anything to do with the storytelling. It's just an odd choice. And people are treating that like that's this deal breaker for the whole movie, or that like is representative of the whole film or something like that. And it collapses under this one choice, which is weird. And so the whole dialogue surrounding the movie is very peculiar, and it's very reactionary, and absolute people with my bias are like excited that someone in our space made a movie. And maybe we're like, maybe there's just, of course, that can shape our opinion and maybe make us too lenient. Flip side, there's people that hated it 2 years ago. And they're locking in on the easiest thing to pick on rather than the movie as a whole, or things like that. Just, there's no normal conversations taking place. There's not, the people that are hating on it, I'm not reading what they're saying and being like, that's a thoughtful take. It just feels like a person that's angry or a person that's nitpicking. Not that you have to like the movie. I understand if you don't like the movie, but the vitriol, the anger, and it's its own version of like a culture war, and it is irritating. Most of these clips are pulled from my Patreon live streams. I do about 6 live streams every single month. For $2 per month, $20 per year, you can get access to all the exclusive videos and live streams. For $5 per month, you get your name on my end card. At the top tier, you get a 30-minute video chat with me each month. The link down below in the description has more information.